Okay, good evening. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission for the Village of Vernon Hills, and we need to start with a roll call.
Chairman Morse.
Present.
Mr. Ballou.
Present.
Ms. Cotton. Mr. Hesner.
Here.
Mr. Heidner.
Here.
Mr. Mulcrone.
Here.
Mr. Gorog. Also for the record, tonight we have Village Attorney Robert Kenny and Building Commissioner Michael Atkinson here in attendance.
Okay, this evening we have on our agenda public hearing, which is case number 12-09, a petition filed on behalf of Westfield LLC requesting a variety of items. First, approval of a special use permit for a planned unit development for a portion of the property known as Westfield Hawthorne Mall, excluding the 4 anchor tenants, to allow for expansion and remodeling and certain variations. Secondly, approval of a special use permit to allow an entertainment use movie theater with alcohol service. Thirdly, approval of a special use permit to allow restaurants serving alcoholic beverages at various locations throughout the property. Fourth, approval of a special use permit to allow a restaurant serving alcoholic beverages and containing an arcade with up to 200 electronic games or amusement devices. Fifth, preliminary and final site and landscaping plan approvals. And sixth, preliminary and final approval of the architectural elevations and signage plans. Although we probably know, the property is commonly known as Westfield Hawthorne Shopping Mall. It is currently zoned B1 General Business, and it is located, for those of you unaware, at the corner of Milwaukee and Town Line Road in Vernon Hills. Who is going to speak on behalf of the petitioner at all? Let's start there. Okay, just the 3 of you, and this is just your network you brought?
No. When you say petitioner, there'll be 3 from Westfield, and then we have representatives from Dave & Buster's as well here.
Okay, whoever's going to speak with regard to any of the requested approvals this evening, we'd ask that they can come forward at this point. Since this is a public hearing, we will swear you in. Okay, then I'll let you introduce them later. Okay. Okay, first we ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth. Okay. The only true rule we have here this evening is whenever you speak, you need to speak either from the microphone at the podium or the handheld, which hopefully is on the podium somewhere. Okay, and then I'll leave it to you to introduce people as you see fit.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Rob Gamreth with Quarles & Brady. I am the outside land use counsel for Westfield. I'm happy to be back before you tonight to formally introduce the expansion and renovation project proposed by Westfield. You've already informally met the cast of, or the roster for our team tonight, but let me just quickly run through who's here tonight so you have a sense as they come up, and I'm sure they will also introduce themselves again. I know that you are very familiar with this project. We've been before you before. You've sat with our application. You've also had the opportunity to review the staff report. So I'm not going to, for the sake of brevity and everyone's interest and time, I'm not going to regurgitate that information. We'll get right to the presentation. Let me just introduce, as I said, who's here tonight with us, whether they're presenting or available to answer questions. From Westfield will be John Genovese, who is the Senior Vice President of Development, Hide Kashima, the Director of Development in Illinois, Michael Platt, who's the architect for Westfield, and Steve Cross, who's the outside consulting project engineer. Ron Herman is here from AMC, and he's available to answer questions generally as it relates to the AMC project. And then the team from Dave & Buster's, Lisa Warren, James Brusso, Rick Sackle, Fred Heinighausen, their outside counsel, who I think many of you already know, Hal Frank, with DLA Piper, and their project architect, Mark O'Henley, who is with Eris Group Architects. Without further ado, I'm going to turn you over to Hide Kashima. He will walk you around the project and the highlights, and Michael Platt, both from Westfield.
Good evening. Just to add to that real quick, Mike Golden, who's our general manager for Westfield Hawthorne, is also here tonight to answer any questions if related to the mall that you have. My name is Hide Kashima, Development Director for Westfield. Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight. I wanted to also thank the staff members that all helped out in this application process. Much appreciated on that. We're excited to be here tonight to officially present Westfield Hawthorne's expansion project. This is very, spent a lot of time working on this, so this is a very happy moment for us to be up here. What we wanted to do here, I'll give it a little overview, and then we'll go through each of the sections geographically, starting from the northeast in clockwise fashion. Our goal here is to make a game-changing experience to our customers, and we're going to do this by remaining germane to our shoppers. We're going to be setting new standards for shopping in this region, and we're going to be expanding our trade area. With new shoppers, this would equal new traffic and hopefully greater sales. The first opportunity we saw for Westfield Hawthorne was entertainment. So tonight we'll be running a program here of theater, restaurants beneath it, additional restaurants throughout the center, and some new retail. So that's the overall program. We're going to be doing significant upgrade to the other 3 mall entries that exist today, so it's consistent. And then also we're going to be upgrading our existing wayfinding program throughout the center. That's both on the exterior, on the perimeter, as well as the ring road interior. I wanted to take you through one of the things that we are asking tonight is approval, special use approval for restaurants serving alcohol. And I believe on page 18 of the package, will show 18 through 20, I believe, will show all the spaces that we think we will get restaurants that will be serving alcohol. So we are requesting that approval. Starting with the northeast, here, this is between Sears and J.C. Penney. We plan to expand our existing common area and create a new Westfield entry. At grade, we're going to be adding what we hope are 2 restaurant spaces, both at about 6,000 square feet. If we can add some other fast casual restaurants, we'd love to do that as well. Other retail and service tenants are being projected there. You'll see a new lobby or common area there with some, right in here, you got some common area seating. Maybe this could be a coffee shop. And then there's an escalator here that we're including. That will go to the 2nd level, taking you to the new theater space right above, 12 screen. And I'll have someone from AMC come up and give a description just in a second. But before we do that, we're also adding patio seating out here for these restaurants, nice landscaping, new hardscape, plaza area, additional outdoor seating, landscaping throughout the perimeter. Anywhere we're touching the parking islands, those will be nicely landscaped. We have a little drop-off zone for both valet and a waiting area for the theater patrons. And I think that this is the remote box office for the theater, so at the grade. And right now, I'd like to introduce Ron Herman from AMC. He can take us through a little bit about the theater project. Ron?
Good evening. My name's Ron Herman. I'm the Vice President of Properties for AMC Theater. Thank you very much for letting me have the opportunity to speak before you today. As Hide said, that AMC is the chosen theater for this location. We're very excited to be building this brand new state-of-the-art theater for your community, and hope that the community embraces it as well. What we plan on doing at this point in time is have approximately, well, not approximately, we're going to have 11 theater auditoriums at this location with approximately 1,200 seats. What we're doing at this location, which you probably haven't seen at any other location that is a traditional theater, is that we're putting in reclining seats at this location. They're going to be 54-inch recliners where they're electric, and you can sit back and relax, and you can go all the way back. And if you're tired, you might actually fall asleep. So that could be a problem. But very comfortable. This is the new way for AMC theaters. We're trying to get this out All of our new theaters aren't like this, just where it works for us. But right now, we're in the process of putting these types of seats in, as many theaters we can get. So in addition to the 1,200 seats here, we're going to have the state-of-the-art digital equipment. It's all going to be digital, which you have to these days anyway. And we're going to have 3D, probably 4 or 5 screens that have 3D, so you can have that. And we're also going to add an extreme theater experience, which is a large screen format that AMC has developed. It's very exciting. It's a huge screen with all sorts of different types of. We have surround sound speakers. It's very, very, very interesting. Also, we're going to have a marketplace, which is what we consider a concession stand of the future. It's not your traditional concession stand that you see in some of the older locations where you go in, you have somebody standing behind a counter, and you ask them for a soda, and they give it to you. Well, what here it's more interactive. We're going to have lots more food choices, and we're going to have Coke Freestyle, which is, in case you're a Coke fanatic, there's 120 different flavors for that location. We're going to have made-to-order foods, hot foods, cold foods. We'll have healthy choices as well, in addition to the traditional theater food that you're going to get, popcorn, pop, everything like that. So, in addition, as Hide noted, is that we are also going to have a bar. If it's approved, we'd like to have a bar in that location. And it's going to be, it's called our Mini MacGuffins. We have that in 40 locations right now, and we're actually expanding that throughout the United States as well. So it's going to be state-of-the-art. It's going to be brand new. It's going to look great. And AMC is very excited about this opportunity to partner with Westfield, which we've partnered with them on several locations throughout the United States. And so we're happy to be here, and we just hope that you guys will embrace the theater as well. So.
You said you have bars in existing theaters already?
Yes, we do. So.
And what's your experience been with those?
It's been going great. We have, we're doing great. We have no issues. I think there's been one issue at a location in the past, but of the 41, we have a great track record, and there's not a lot going on in the city or within this market area. We have 3. One of them is at Randhurst. There's a bar there. Chicago Ridge, and there's also one at River East, which is in Chicago. Those are the 3 theaters in this market that currently have alcohol sales.
And how long have you had those?
Let's see, the one in Chicago Ridge opened, I believe, a year ago or last summer, and that was with Westfield at the time as well. And I'm not sure the exact dates, but it's been within the last year and a half.
So a year's worth of experience doing
Pardon?
this. A year's worth of experience?
At those locations here in the city, yes. Others have been longer. We have one in Kansas City that's been there for 4 years.
What are the operational hours of the bar?
Of the bar, I don't know what they're set at this point in time. Typically it's a matter of supply and demand. If it's not going to be open in the morning by any means, if you have a morning show on Saturdays, but it'll be, the hours will be adjusted as necessary.
Do you have any locations where some of the theaters get served no alcohol and some where you can have alcohol? Do you have any situations where there's some that don't and some that do?
Are you talking about the auditoriums themselves? Or?
Yes.
Okay, yes. There are. Typically, if we have a theater that has a bar, it's all mandated by the state whether or not you can take alcohol into the theaters or not. So, I mean, if it's allowed by codes, then yes, it happens.
Well, I guess my question was, do you ever have some that don't allow alcohol in it if it's an alcohol-oriented or allowed theater? So, for instance, there wouldn't be any. For instance, if there's families that didn't want to have that around them, and then there's others that would have some, so a mixture.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, I don't know how to answer that question because I'm not familiar with all the locations that we have throughout the United States on the liquor. We actually have a specific team that is dedicated to that, who would be more able to answer those questions. Not trying to get away from it, but typically the folks, we have a food and beverage team. It was unfortunate due to a scheduling conflict that they couldn't make it tonight. Typically what they would do is they would make a presentation to the city, the mayor, the chief of police, and let them know what we do at all of our locations. It's a specific, kind of footprint of what goes on, and they get with the city officials to let them know how it works. It's a city official, I believe it's the mayor that actually provides or approves the liquor license. So at that point in time, they go through the whole process to go with that. But at this point in time, I really can't answer all those questions.
But at this point in time, you're seeking a special use to allow that to function to occur in every one of the theaters, correct?
Correct.
Are you suggesting 12 or 11 theaters? Because our plans have 12, and I think you said 11.
Well, let me make sure. I misspoke. It is 12.
Okay, so our plans are correct.
Yes.
On the plans, there's something noted that says Cafe Lounge. Is that what is referred to as the bar?
Tell you the truth? Yes. I'm guessing that's what
It's
Ron.
C, letter C?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that something that is accessible to the public without a theater ticket?
No, it is not.
So to get up the escalator, you have to have a theater ticket? Or
At the landing, yes. At the top.
Or at the top,
Yeah.
or to get off.
You will have to have a ticket to the theater to be able to get into there.
Okay. And then I don't know if I'm guessing correctly, but am I guessing correctly that it's just not a bar to walk up and walk into the theater with? It also has seating associated with it, or does it not?
Right now, it's going to have at least 6 seats right at the bar,
Sure.
and then maybe a few seats just around at that point in time. But it's not going to be a huge undertaking by any means.
Let me phrase it less obtuse. Is the intention of the enhanced concessions and the bar to create kind of a one-stop entertainment destination, dinner, drinks, and a movie, versus the old, if you go to your current AMC, it's dinner and go somewhere else for drinks and a movie if you want to?
Well, yes, it'd be great to have that at this location. I mean, it's all a matter of what people want. Dinner, we're going to have a more enhanced type concession stand. I'm not sure that people would go there and say, I'm going to have dinner there and go to the movie, but you'll have more choices. But I'm just not thinking people would say, I'm going to go to dinner at AMC there and then go.
Okay. At the expense of naming one of your competitors in this market, it's not that, you're not looking at either what's in Rosemont or what's in Barrington?
The dine-in.
The dine-in?
Not this one, no, sir.
Or with the full restaurants like
No, it is
Movico
not.
has? Okay.
It is not, yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Would you say the concept of the theater is more geared towards adults or towards families?
It's for both. It's geared for our regular customers. There's a lot of families that go to the movies here in the town, and there's a lot of adults too. But we find that everybody embraces this type of. I mean, when you have these great seats, people love these seats, and families go with their children because the children are nice and comfortable. They don't have to sit there and go, oh, I don't like this seat. But we're here for everyone. We're not gearing this towards any age group.
Just an operational question. With the service of alcohol, are parents allowed to drop their kids off at the theater? Like if they're teenagers or younger, or do they have to be accompanied by an adult to attend the theater?
At this point in time, I do not know the answer to that question. We do have parental escort policies at some of our theaters, but I'm not sure if this one's going to have that or not. Part of it is whether the mall has a parental escort policy as well, but and we always comply with what those rules are, but at this point in time, it has not been determined.
What happens to the existing AMC theater?
At this point in time, it's our goal and plan to keep it open. AMC is a growing company, not a shrinking company, and provided that, and as I was mentioning earlier too, we have taken many of our theaters and taken out the old slope floor locations, and we've added these recliner seats, and it's kind of it's no longer a slope floor, it's more of a mini type risers. So, it probably something will have to be done there, because if you don't upgrade it, and that's what we're doing to most of our theaters throughout the United States is upgrading. At this point in time, we believe that the city can, or the population density in this area can support both theaters, and that's our goal, is to keep both of them.
Have you done any studies to verify the demand to keep that capacity?
I'm sure that's been done, but I'm not aware of the information that was provided.
I have another question regarding the food. you know, when you say enhanced food options, are you still ordering at a counter and then waiting for it to come to you? Or does that food come to you in one of the theaters?
No, you have to wait for it, sir.
You wait for it?
Yes.
So, and you said that in some of these places you can order ahead?
No, well, at our dine-in theaters, you would. Dine-in
This
theaters-
is not a dine-in
No,
theater.
it is not. That, if that was how I said it, I do apologize. But no, this is a state of art. You have to go up to the counter and order it and just kind of wait around for it. And,
Then
you know,
what is an enhanced food item?
Yeah.
well, right now, what we have, you know, typically if you go to a theater, you have your candy and you have your popcorn. We're going to have sandwiches that are healthy sandwich type. We're going to have mozzarella sticks, chicken fingers, and just made-to-order hot foods. It just gets enhanced, and you know, pizzas, we have that, hot dogs. It's several different things. It's not traditional that you'd find at some of the older locations.
So if I come there, I can buy my ticket, go up the escalator. I can get a drink with my spouse. I can order something to eat, and I can take the food and our 2 beers and go into the restaurant, or go into the theater and watch that.
That is correct.
Okay.
And these seats you mentioned were recliner, some of them recline. All of them recline, some of them.
Yeah, all of them will be recliners.
Do you have experience with that as far as that creating more opportunities to spill things and creating a mess and more maintenance for you?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question, but what we have found is that guests love these seats. You know, it's not your experience when you're sitting in a straight back chair and you can't move. You have different opportunities. Each person can lean back as far as they want, or they can lean forward as much as they want. But our experience throughout the United States is that this is very good, and our guests love it.
A question about just the graphics of these theaters. They appear to be just regular theater seats, but you keep mentioning the recliners. Are these not the final plans for the theater?
Yeah.
Yeah, these plans, at the time we were doing this, this is a traditional stadium seating layout. The recliner versions, I know MC is still working them out. The auditorium sizes will remain the same. It'll just be less seats. The treads and risers will all change to accommodate the recliners. And the recliners, just for clarification, they are automated to all settings, so it's not just upright and back. You can control various angles. So it's very, very comfortable, wide seats.
I actually had another question about the plan. The emergency egress corridors around the perimeters of the theaters. I trust that you guys will take a look at the sizing of those and
They will
capacity.
absolutely be sized accordingly. I mean, the stairs, the egress corridors, we will meet every code on that. You know, multiple modes of egress, fully compliant, code compliant, excuse me.
Okay.
Is that what that appendage is out to the west?
Yes, it is.
Like some alarm equipment in these types of buildings, when you have large gatherings and an alarm goes off for fire or whatever purpose, the doors are automatically unlocked and people are able to egress quicker. These chairs, everybody's reclining in these chairs, do they automatically return to the upright position when an alarm goes off and everybody has to vacate the area?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to guess no. I can check and get that information to you if you'd prefer.
I think it's important. I mean, those are all details, but, you know, you don't want to learn those details don't work in the event of a problem.
It's actually a fair question. I hadn't even occurred to me, but as you're voicing your question there, I could see where you're going with it, and it is something that we should be aware of.
You know, it's like fail-safe, fail-secure type of locking mechanisms and hardware. You know, maybe there's a function that can be programmed into these types of seats, same way.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the meeting. Just one thing I want to mention here, we are requesting also 2 media panels. This is on the east elevation of the theater box, 14 by 48 size media panel. This, we are requesting permission for off-premise advertisement. This will be static, so this will be not moving, and just a framed box with kind of a fabric graphic material that we stretch out and stays there. We're also requesting the same size on the north elevation right here, 14 by 48. Also requesting off-premise advertising content. And then within the AMC building, there's a blank wall right here, and this is a glass box outside of it. They would like also a graphic right to put in movie posters, a big giant movie poster in there. I think we have a rendering. So those are the 2 panels, 14 by 48 north, east, and then with behind this glass, I think we have a little Hunger Games, little advertisement in there.
So that's on the inside of the building?
That's on the inside, yes.
And those other panels that are on the exterior that don't say cinema, they don't have anything necessarily to do with what's going on at the cinema?
That's correct. It would be any product, service, or message.
Any product, service, or message associated specifically with the community or with the mall, or could include things outside the community in the mall?
Yes, it could include anything outside, inside. They tend to be products, or it could be, imagine a United Airlines advertisement, or it could be a Cadillac, it could be Tide products from Procter & Gamble. It varies. We sell these things, and the client just varies from consumer products to services.
How long do you keep a certain one up, or do you have a changing pattern?
Typically, it depends on the client, if what length they would like. These
So they
things
pay
can-
more money, they can stay longer?
Correct. And, we'll do these on the actual material is pretty expensive to print out, so it'd be more appropriate if they had a longer term. But
Or you do something generic, maybe for a year's time, so that they can work on a certain marketing campaign, at least it would go up for a while, maybe return.
Right.
And return.
It would never be blank. Right now, what we show here is, we're calling a showstopper. It's actually a graphic by Westfield. We would probably announce something. We would never leave it blank. There would be some sort of generic Westfield advertisement promoting the mall, like go check out our food court, or our play area has just been renovated. Try our valet parking. There's always some sort of messaging that we would use when it's not sold. But the objective is to make sure that it's sold.
Oh, sure.
So, but you will never see a blank framed, empty sign area.
Because the building is 23 feet taller than the existing structure, the west facade of this new cinema and the south facade is probably going to be visible from the ring road and the residences. What is the intended architectural treatment of those 2 facades?
Michael, I'm going to try to answer this. The north, what you see here in the north elevation here, most of this will be continued on to the west and the south. Of course, we're not going to have the framing, but the material and the coloring and the reliefs would be there. We did take a look at that to make sure. This would be where this is an aerial, and the proposed building is right around here. you're about 1,300 feet to the edge of this ring road here, and it's mostly commercial and retail tenants. I think we don't really, at that angle, really hit any of the residential out here. But I think nonetheless, the treatment will be, all four sides will have the same base treatment. We won't have the glass, but same materials.
Yeah, the architectural skin will be remarkably similar, minus the graphic panels. It's the same finish, same color, same architectural reveals. Again, just a simplified version of what you see on what we're looking at as being the two primary facades, the north and the east.
Okay. Also on these renderings, you're depicting a glass railing. Is that what you're intending to use around the landscaping beds and the ramps?
Sorry, where are you seeing the
On the 3D renderings,
3D renderings? Okay.
there's a glass railing.
There's a rail.
Oh, right here? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
I think that is something that's probably yet to be determined. I'm not sure it necessarily would be glass. Glass would actually be nice, but we're certainly very mindful it won't be a climbing element. It obviously needs to function and meet code and meet its intended purpose. What that final material ends up being, I honestly can't answer that at the moment. Are you a fan of the glass or not a fan of the glass?
I like glass railings. I was just curious.
I'm kind of on the other side of that because I think the glass just gets real dirty. And I just don't think it could be maintained
That's
properly.
the challenge. In this environment, glass is challenging. It does look nice. It's like almost like a black car. It looks great when it's clean. It's pretty tough to keep.
Right now,
so.
I think that is probably a function of the rendering program more than anything else.
It's something very simple, right? It's easy to look through. It's not the thing we're trying to focus on here. We didn't, this rendering wasn't intended to make it about a handrail, but of course it's there front and center for all to see. So it's a way for us to kind of blur a boundary there a little bit.
But maybe something like a frosted glass or acrylic colored material, or
Can you go back to the page you had up, which had the distances on it?
sure, I think it was this.
Okay. The one distance that is not reflected on this is if you go from the proposed building we're talking about
Yes.
to the, what would be immediately north residences, what's that distance?
That is not measured here, but Michael, if we can scale that off.
I'd put that at about 300 feet, 250. To the ring road, or to the residence beyond the ring road? Yeah. To the ring road, I'd say it's about 300 feet, and so you've got another 150 feet or so beyond that to the residence.
Okay.
It's a pretty significant way. I mean, even working on the shopping center as much as we do and knowing as much as we know about it, sometimes some of these dimensions are really kind of surprising. It is a long way.
Okay.
Actually, I have one more question
Sure.
about the east elevation. There's one panel, D, concrete panel. It appears to be the only exposed concrete on the facade. Do you have a material sample of that? On page 5. Right by the entrance.
Yeah, that actually would reflect a tenant finish. So, actually that statement may actually be a bit erroneous. That would ultimately end up being a part of a tenant treatment, and when those tenants come to pass, that material would actually be fleshed out. We've put some examples of tenants that we've worked with in the past and tenants that we sort of use as inspiration, and some of the tenants we're actually targeting for the shopping center. So you kind of get a sense of the palette. We are looking for kind of rich, very honest materials here. I think that's perhaps why that one was actually called out. And you get a kind of sort of a different feel depending on the particular usage. But again, until the leasing is really shored up on that and we are able to come to market with announcing of tenants, and actually then you will see the proper facades that will be reflected there. That is really just there as an example.
John, do tenant improvements come back to you when they find a tenant?
What we're suggesting in the report is that the palette that you see on the screen here is something that you would approve, and when a tenant build out where a tenant has outside elevations or outside access, that the building commissioner would work within this palette to determine if it is consistent with what was intended and shown here. And, you know, if that's kind of how we've worked in a couple of other instances, most recently within the TIF district. And if they meet or work within this palette, then we would handle it administratively. If they deviated or decided to go in a different direction, we would likely make the judgment that it would come back either here or go directly back to the village board for reapproval, so to speak.
So this sheet is an attempt to anticipate what tenants might use and actually show what we are going to really push them to use. And we hope that what you realize will be reflected here on the page. And I think your statement is very clear. If it isn't, then there's a judgment call to be made.
Okay. Move around the building.
And that's a good segue into I know one of the prior meetings that we had, there was a question that was brought up as to how we would treat if we don't have a tenant in time of grand opening, and how would you treat that storefront? And if you look back at this elevation, I want to make it clear that anything you see with the dashed line, that's intended for tenant fit out and tenant design. So should we not have a tenant, that could be just a blank shell space. What we typically do, and this has happened for us before, and that's certainly not our goal, but should that situation occur, we typically barricade it out. And this is a project we just did down in San Diego at University Town Center. You'll see here, this is the landlord bulkhead, and then right below is intended for tenant storefront. And what we've done here is nicely put up a barricade, and these are super graphics that we apply. This, I know it's a little bit hard to read, but it says Westfield. We sort of had a resort theme here going on, so a nice little graphic, and it bodes well with the common area for the temporary time period. So we just wanted to make sure that was addressed and made clear to the commission members. Here are some other, these are actually construction barricades, so this is during construction. These are tenants that have already been identified. Part of our criteria is that all of our tenants have to put in graphics on the exterior. So this is at Old Orchard, Boss. This is a mall that we used to own, Chicago Ridge, and the Aldi food was coming in. This is all graphics. North Face. This might be Hawthorne, maybe not. But these are just examples of how that would look, and we wouldn't just leave it blank and bland. So that was the northeast section. I'd like to move on to the southeast. Here, we have a very exciting tenant in Dave & Buster's. They'll be taking about 40,000 square feet of our space. Access will be from the lower level and going up. Part of this development here, we're proposing to take down the existing canopy that goes out here, a massive structure that's really blocking the sight lines to these proposed tenants. We will take that back. We will do a nice new entry, a Westfield entry, a new common mall entry. This will be transformed into a nice plaza area. This will be the existing Pace bus drop-off. It will also can serve as a valet drop-off as well. There is a bus stop that's being shown here. I believe this was brought to our attention in our last meeting by a Plan Commission member, and so we've incorporated these comments. And improved landscaping in both existing areas. And right now, I'd like to introduce Lisa Warren, VP of Development from Dave & Buster's, and she can introduce her team and walk you through their operations and what they propose to do.
Thank you. As Tide said, my name is Lisa Warren. I'm the Vice President of Development Services for Dave & Buster's. We're pleased and proud to be here tonight. I believe earlier in the week, the Assistant Village Manager put in your packet an overview presentation so that you get to know our company and what we offer our guests. I hope, too, that you've had a chance to visit one of our other 3 locations in the Chicago market. I'm happy to answer any questions about who we are as an organization and what we want to bring to the village. I'm going to split our presentation into two parts. First, I'm going to have Fred Hennighausen, our Senior Director of Design and Construction, and our architect, Mark O'Henley, with ARIA Group Architects, come and walk you through the exterior elevation proposal. And then I'm going to ask Rick Sackley, our Director of Operations, and James Brousseau, our National Director of Security, to walk you through our floor plan and talk about sort of a day in the life and how we run our operation on a day-to-day basis and how all the footprint of the store lays out. So with that, I'll ask Fred and Mark to come up and walk you through the exterior elevation and signage package that's proposed.
Good evening. I'm Fred Hennighausen with Design and the Design and Construction Department with Dave & Buster's, and this is Mark O'Henley with ARIA Architects. We've been partnering with ARIA out of the Oak Park area for over the past several years, and they've helped us as we've been rebranding our facility, our offering from a building standpoint. We've been working with a branding group and are proud and excited to have a vibrant new facility to be able to offer you all over at the mall. Regarding the outside of the building, our entry, we've got a couple of slides here, and Mark, are we able to zoom in on those? What we're doing with our entry is using about 7 elements that we're employing on every store, and you see them as they're located here on the outside of this building, somewhat detached or slightly detached from the Westfield entry. We felt that separating our entry pillar and plinth was important, and not to mix messages between the two. I think there's another elevation here that might help demonstrate that a little bit better. So I don't know if you're familiar with this space, but this actually is our space up on the second level here.
Use the handheld mic.
Okay, sorry. Our space is actually that gray area that's on either side of the Westfield portal, and we looked at some opportunities to try and brand that area, but felt that really it was going to be most appropriate to separate that. So I think you all have seen these before. Mark is able to talk about some of the materials that we're using here, but these elements are, as I say, standard with our new openings across the country, and gives us a little bit more of a fresh, vibrant presentation than we've had in the past. Any questions about?
On the elevation, the 2D elevation, the Dave & Buster's tower is called out as EFIS, but on this document it says it's lit internally. Is the entire tower basically a light box?
You know, it's interesting. It's actually neither one of those. So I'm not sure why we have that reference. We know that we can't use EFIS here, and so we even though we do use EFIS for these towers across the country, we aren't planning to here. Mark has some materials that he can discuss, and we haven't internally illuminated those towers at this point. So we would not. We'd be looking at a metal panel there, reflective finish, durable, and with good longevity.
Yeah. Well, right here, but it says with orange accent lighting along sides and blue lighting through the center. So could you explain that?
We do have an orange uplight, so at the night part of our offering is that that white tower turns to a vibrant blue, but it's a surface wash that illuminates the front of that tower. We have used an orange trim, an LED strip on the edge of that tower, occasionally if we're looking to pop that a little bit more. So those are, I'm guessing, what those two references are right now.
So the lights are wall washers in the surface of the walkway?
I beg your pardon?
With the uplighting, is it coming from the walkway then?
It's a ground fixture. We have actually a couple of photos of location we just opened in Boise. I'm not sure, are they marked in their packet or not? Do you know?
I think we added tonight.
Okay. So,
We can go back to that presentation.
are you able to zoom in on that? So this is the location we just opened in Boise a couple of weeks ago. It does have all the elements, though, that we're referring to here. The blue illuminated tower here on the side, our signage mounted on the white tower. In this particular case, we have two side towers that glow blue, and the primary tower stays white. We do uplight. Excuse me?
Sorry, we have this on our slide. Can we switch
Do you?
over to the slide?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that.
No.
You guys sent it to us?
Oh, there
so
we
if you
go.
want to scroll,
Good.
like, there's 4. I think.
Okay, excellent. So again, here is the blue towers that you see in this particular building on each end of the, or each corner of the building. We have the tricolor orange treatment there that's a signature element for us. We try and limit that as along the top band of the building and then bring it down at one location, typically near our entry. Other elements that we repeat and would be proposing repeating on this job would be the round bollards around the entry, and our storefront is generally oversized, as you see here. There's some LED treatment up in the soffit you see on this project. See if I can get to the next one. Here we go. And there's a day shot of that particular facility. In this location in Boise, we use the tagline on the outside of the building, "Get your game on." For this project, let's see if I can scroll back to that. For this project, you see there's a blue area that is just to the right of the tower, and that would have an internal graphic in it that would say, "Get your game on," and give a hint as to the activity inside. And it would be combined with some game graphic that you see there. Right now it's our skeet ball. And that would lead the person coming up to the entry, pull them a little bit to the right where our storefront doors would be, and then inside those doors is where we would have our monumental stair.
Is that sign from your intention to possibly also include off-premises advertising, or would that be limited to just your use?
The blue sign,
Yeah.
that is just our, strictly our offering only.
Okay, anyone else?
Is there direct mall access on the second floor?
On the second floor, there's direct mall access on the second floor and also on the first floor just inside the Westfield doors there. So you can see this is the second level. We have mall access in this location. And then down on the lower level, we're entering the mall, we're entering our facility here next to our tower, or you can enter from the mall entry immediately adjacent to our entry. Let's see if I can show you. So this is the mall entry here at the top of the space.
Yeah, okay. So you would allow patrons to come in via that entrance? They wouldn't have to go outside and go back up the stairs or the escalator?
Certainly, and we have that entrance has an attendant at it. We call those attendants our mix master, and there's someone at that position at both the entries into the space.
Identify that entrance again with using the mouse.
On the second level, this is the mall entry, and so there is an attendant at that location. And then as your guests come up the monumental stair here, they're greeted by another attendant at that spot.
What is on your first floor entry area? What is it just the stairway?
Yes, essentially, it's just the stairway. I've seen if we had a picture of that.
How was that?
All right. So, I don't know if you can see it easily here, but this is our, you say you do have a, okay. This is our entry down on the lower level, and actually what we have down here is just the monumental stair, elevator, and a couple of supporting functions. That space is designed, though, to be very attractive, a large graphic on that curved wall leading up to that second level. And the stair is a handsomely done contemporary structure.
Then take them upstairs.
Mhm.
No, show them on the floor plan.
So you'll enter here off the plaza. You'll walk up the stairs here, these curved stairs with this large two-story wall adjacent to you, and then you'll come out at this particular spot, and there's our attendant to greet you at that location. And at that particular point, that mixmaster will either send you off if you're interested to the dining room, or you can go into the game area, the arcade.
So show them where that all is.
Okay. So as you come up these stairs, again, there's that mixmaster. They will send you this direction into the dining. It's about roughly 250 seats or so, full dining, supported by our kitchen at this location. We also have off the dining a boardroom that seats around 64 or so. Maybe it could be a little smaller here, maybe 48 in this location. And there's a hostess at this spot that will give you a pager and ultimately seat you. Or you may go directly into the bar in this area. Our bar is a two-faced bar, one side that orients to a D&B sports area, very large projection screens and plasma TV. And then the other side is what we call the game bar that orients into the arcade area. Off of the midway here, that's approximately 10,000 feet, we have several special event rooms for use for parties or corporate events, etc.
Okay, anybody?
You all right? Okay.
What kind, on your interior wallway, I assume you'll have some signage there as well?
And you say you're, along
On-
the
in
inside
the
of the
mall.
mall? Yes, sir. We certainly will. It will, we're working on that, those elevations currently, but that we'll be carrying some of the elements from the exterior into those elevations. So you'll see some of the tricolor orange, blue graphic, the white wall with the signage on it, etc. So there'd be definitely a connection between inside and out.
And Sears is just to the east of you there, is that correct?
That's correct. Let's see. Well, let me see. Is that right? I'm not sure of the direction, but they are on this side.
And this is presently in the spot where the Glow Golf is right now. As
Yeah.
it go farther,
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it
Two?
looks bigger than,
it looks bigger than Glow Golf. So that's my question: are you eating up
Right.
something else next to it?
It is combining Glow Golf, Build-A-Bear, Delia's, all the way through Foot Locker. Foot Locker's still there, so that's the demising,
That's where it is.
the end line there. And the upper level goes all the way straight to Sears Wall.
Okay.
And then at the lower level, we still have the mall concourse there, the side mall, and then we're having a burger tenant at the end there.
Okay.
I just have a question for Mike. The Westfield entrance, is that glass extending all the way up the facade?
Yes, it is.
And is there light within that element?
Yes, there is. It's got a kind of a multi, well, it's a frit pattern on there, but with kind of a couple different patterns to kind of break it up a little bit, and then it has just a very light glow to it, a kind of a luminous glow. There is some imagery in the package, but it's sort of a blend of frits. So a more kind of solid frit, a little bit more translucent frit, and then somewhere in between. And we'll use that across that facade to kind of create this beacon or a lantern, just kind of a way to really kind of denote the entry.
Thank you for doing that. I know that was a comment that was made, and thank you for extending it up as high as you did. It's going to make a big difference in identifying those entrances. Plus, it lightens it up. It adds a little detail, some finesse. And that's not just at night, it's during the day.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
It really looks nice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we probably should. Does someone want to, or is someone able to give us a brief discussion of the operation of the restaurant and the bar? What is this?
It's the Burger Blues. It's a different place.
So it's this space?
Good evening. I'm Rick Sackley. I'm the Regional Operations Director for Dave & Buster's, and I'm actually located here in the Chicago area, so I enjoyed 50-degree weather and then 10-degree weather the very next day.
I'm James Brusso. I'm from our home office in Dallas, Texas.
Would you like to ask questions, or would you like me to take you through kind of a day in the life? I can kind of walk through the floor plan with you. Okay, so first we start with the entrances. There's going to, obviously we just went through that, there's going to be two. I would have my captains stationed at the bottom of the stairs initially, not wanting to have our guests go all the way up the stairs and then possibly them being turned away. And then another captain stationed at the entrance mall, the mall from the entrance from the mall area, and then roaming throughout the midway as well. So we're IDing you coming in both entrances, and we're roaming through the midway to ensure that minors are with their adults. Again, the dining and the bar area, it's a 6-to-1 ratio. If you are under the age of 18, you need to be with an adult 25 years or older. And you need to be with that adult the entire time. So if you're in the dining room, you can't drop off your kids. You can't let 6 kids run in the midway while you're sitting at the bar or in the dining room. You need to be with them at all times. Our IDing policy, again, we card you at the door. You'll get ID'd at the bar when you order a drink. It's 1 guest, 1 ID, 1 drink. So I can't go to the bar and order 3 beers and walk away. I have my 1 ID, I have my beer, it's my drink, and I can order another one when that one is finished. We don't have pitchers now. We do have, in some stores, we're starting to get the beer tubes, and it would be the same depending on how many guests are ordering that beer. We have a count system also on our beverages, a certain count, then we will stop serving you. Each drink has a specific count depending on what it is. If it's a beer, it might be 1 point. If it's a Long Island iced tea, it might have 2. So we count that as well. All of our managers are Serve Safe certified instructors. All of our servers that serve alcohol are Serve Safe tested. We have bi-weekly testing, pop quizzes, and you're recertified every 3 years. And if your certification is expired, you're not on the floor. You cannot serve alcohol until you pass that again. If you're a new hire, day 1 is when you take your test, and you cannot serve until get out of training. You can get out of training, but you can't serve alcohol until you've passed your test.
Does your pager system for seating in the restaurant, since you're the only restaurant we're actually talking to this evening, work throughout the mall or just in your space?
I don't know how far it reaches. I mean, we have pagers in our Addison store, for example, is about 55,000 square feet, and it pretty much, you can reach the entire store. So I don't know if it's going to reach the entire mall. I'm not sure.
But it would likely go out into the mall if somebody wanted to go outside and wait in the mall.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they would, I mean, the host stand,
It's not that far away.
no, because here's the entrance here, or here, so yeah, they could. It would probably reach, yeah.
What are your hours of operation?
To be consistent with the market right now, we're 11 to midnight, Sunday through Thursday, and 11 to 2 Friday and Saturday.
Is that for the restaurant and the bar, the restaurant, the bar?
That's the entire,
Midway, everything?
everything, yeah.
So, and how late is the restaurant open?
We're out until,
No, I know I just heard it was the same hour, so it'd be open till 2?
yeah, it all closes together.
Nice.
You serve food till 2?
Yes, sir, yep. Full service, 11 to 2.
Good idea.
You have to understand, we live in a community that goes to bed at 9:30 sometimes. And so it's kind of nice to have some place open past 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
Very good.
I'm going to vote yay on that also.
Very good. Very good.
Now, if you can talk to the other restaurants in the mall to do that, we'd be very happy. Okay. Anything else you want to tell us about the operation?
James?
Yes, just give you a brief overview of what we do security-wise inside of our buildings. Rick had mentioned captains. They're sort of our guest ambassadors. We use them to check IDs at the door, at the mall entry. We also have them roaming throughout the building, and that's what they're really there for. They're the first point of contact with our guests. They're to help direct people as they come into our building, check their ID, and also help solve any potential issues that they may come upon as they're walking through the building. So if they walk through the building, they see two guests that seem to be getting louder, raising their voice with each other, they can alert a manager, get somebody over there to help intervene, de-escalate that incident before it gets out of hand, and you've got an incident where you've got to have somebody ejected from the building. In addition to those people, you've got managers that are wearing headsets, and they're in radio contact with not only the captains, we're using contractor off-duty security in the building. They're in radio contact with those people as well. Also the bartenders and our game techs in the Midway area that are there to make sure that the games are working properly. So anytime that we do have something sort of issue that does arise, there's plenty of ways to contact a manager so we can get somebody over there to de-escalate the incident before it gets out of hand. In addition to those people, of course, the building's fully alarmed, access controlled in certain areas. And then we also have full CCTV throughout the building that will cover not only the entrances, but the bar areas, the midway areas as well. So if anything does occur within the premises, we've got good forensic evidence to be able to go back and review those incidents or provide evidence to the police department should there be legal issues that arise from those.
You guys have, let's say, limited locations in the Chicago area. 3, 4? 3?
Yeah.
Is that out of Chicago, or does that include the one in Chicago?
We have one downtown Chicago,
Right.
Addison, Orland Park, and then it's not Chicago, but Wauwatosa, Wisconsin,
Okay.
in this area.
What was your appeal to come? Why did you pick Vernon Hills is my question. Was it based on the whole movie theater concept and everything, or were you interested in this area before that?
I'll let Lisa answer that.
We were interested in this segment of the market, and we like to be located with a combination of residential and retail, and the redevelopment of the Westfield Mall just provided that entry. So it was really about this larger segment of the market, first and foremost.
Okay.
But all your other facilities are freestanding, is that correct?
Well, the one downtown, it's kind of it's in an urban setting. The Addison store is freestanding, and Orland Park is out on the pad of the mall, yes. But as a company-wide, we have many locations that are situated just like this.
And do you own your facilities or lease them?
Combination.
I have a Westfield operations question. When the mall closes down, was it 9 or 9:30, and Dave & Buster's is still open and potentially all these great new restaurants are open, will people be able to wander the mall?
We will, try to answer this. Well, actually, you know what? I'll call Mike Golden before I make a mistake, so I'll let Mike answer.
I'm Mike Golden, I'm the general manager of the mall. We are well aware that with the onset of a theater and a Dave & Buster's, that the traffic patterns in the mall are going to change. That being said, if someone parks on the northeast side to go to a movie, and after the movie they want to go to Dave & Buster's, we're going to let them. But we are going to be staffed appropriately with security in the common area throughout the time frame that Dave & Buster's and the theater are open. As well, we'll have people throughout. We'll have cars and trucks throughout the parking lots to ensure that the safety of everyone as well.
So I was just wondering, so if someone parks on the southwest side, that new entrance, after a movie gets out, they'd still be able to walk through the mall in bad weather to get back to the car?
Yeah. We can't let them walk outside. It's a safety issue, and we will have people at every corner of the mall keeping an eye on it.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Where are we going now? Can we get the slide back up on the projector, please? All right, I'm going to move along here to the west entry.
Southwest. That's southeast. Southwest. Good point.
Okay, so as mentioned before, we didn't want part of our mall to be improved, especially at the entries, and the other not. So this is the southwest. A very similar treatment to the southeast. We are going to take back the canopy, create a drop-off zone, nice exterior seating clusters. This will be a new restaurant space out here. We're still negotiating the lease, very close to getting that done, but I think you'll find it a very good tenant. They're a proven operator. They're proposing some outdoor dining here during the warmer months. And then this is our new mall entry, really opening up sight lines through here from all directions.
Former tenant?
Former tenant was Ruby Tuesday. It is currently vacant. We really hope to announce this in the next week or two, but I think you'll find it very exciting. Again, looking at the elevation here, same treatment as what Michael had described earlier, being consistent. The only difference on this side of the mall, we are asking for another graphic panel here, a media panel. This would be static, and we are requesting off-premise advertisement on that. This is a little rendering here that shows
Will that tenant be a two-story tenant or a single-story tenant?
single-story tenant,
And how much square footage would they have?
about 10,000 square feet.
10,000 square feet?
Correct. They're taking the Ruby Tuesday space and a little bit of the older, the former, well, limited space got smaller, so they're taking a portion of that. All on the first level. Any questions?
Is there going to be no mall entrance then?
Oh, this is the mall entrance right here.
Let me try that in English.
Oh.
To the restaurant.
Oh, to the restaurant. There will be an interior, this will be primarily the one entry here, and I believe they're going to do one right here in the interior mall. We typically make sure all our tenants have a mall entry, so this one I believe will have two.
Just, they are actually looking at doing both. They actually have, just like Dave & Buster's does, a presence, an interior storefront on the lower level, an exterior storefront on the lower level, both in and exterior entries. Same thing happening here. Actually, the latest plan that I've seen, they're looking at putting their primary entry right where you see the letter V. Is that a V or a W, whatever that one is, right there. Oh. And so that way they can actually have a single hostess stand and be able to pick up interior traffic as well as exterior traffic. So it's actually a pretty clever plan. Would not have been where I would have put the hostess base, but for that very reason, I think it's a very good idea.
Is the media panel similar to the horizontal ones on the cinema facades?
Correct. Exactly the same mechanism, same style, performance, just a smaller size. I think we're requesting a 12 by 24 on this one.
So this is the material, the...
Correct.
Okay.
Flexible fabric material.
From an operational standpoint, from Hawthorne's perspective, or Westfield, with the hours of the movie theater presumably being longer than the typical mall store hours, and with Dave & Buster's clearly being longer than the typical mall hours, are you going to build into your agreements with the various restaurants that they don't open and close with the mall? Or are these going to be primarily mall hour restaurants?
We will, that option will be available to them. It really, at a minimum, they'll have to operate during mall hours.
Right.
If they want to extend, that's perfectly fine with us. We just need to know and make sure we appropriately provide security for that. It will be a business decision on the tenant's part.
Where I'm really going, I guess, is a little bit different, is that with the expressed intention of creating, among other things, an entertainment destination, it seems to me that if that isn't coordinated, and maybe the only person that coordinated is you, as Westfield, in some respects, that's failed. We have, Dave & Buster's on one side, a theater way on the other side, and then we have what we've discussed already, the going to bed at 9:30 at night, and we lose the entertainment destination to other areas. So I guess from my standpoint, I'd encourage you to somehow work it in that they do have some sort of enhanced hours. Perhaps not, you said this is a sit-down white tablecloth restaurant, maybe not the same, but at least the ones around the theater.
We could certainly recommend that. I think I would hope that they will do enough business on their own that they will extend it. Certainly, that really depends on the tenant. We have been, we don't want to be in a situation where we require it and somehow the business doesn't do well. So we got to be careful. There's a fine line of what we can encourage. And if the business decision, if the studies show that it's worthwhile and feasible, I'm sure they'll do that. So it's a good point. We certainly we certainly would encourage it if it was going to be profitable for them.
Would that be similarly with the current food court that's essentially, connected to, for lack of a better word, the theaters?
The food court, I think we will still operate at normal hours. It just after 10 o'clock, I don't think that crowd. Certainly we can allow people to still operate, but we certainly wouldn't force them to stay open to the late shows.
Most people still go at 9:30 and leave. There may be a few that are up later.
Scott and I are up, we just can't find a place to eat.
Will all these potential new restaurants in the mall have their own restroom facilities, or will they be using the mall restrooms?
Yes, they're all large enough, and I think by code they will have to have restrooms, I believe. So, yes, they will all have their own restrooms.
They are fully self-sustaining, each and every one of them.
That marketing piece on the wall, the vertical,
Yes.
it would also be, you'd be selling promotional stuff from outside the community, anything that comes that is a paying customer?
Correct.
Within reason?
Yes, within reason. We pride ourselves in being a top-notch, high-class mall operator. We would not consider anything that would hurt our image, our branding. That's foremost very important to us. That's why you see our Westfield name all over, because that stands for something to our shoppers, and they can expect quality and high-class operation. So certainly we would take that into account.
Do any of your other malls in the area have those signs with external vendors?
We have, at Old Orchard, we do have these static panels. We also have an LED. They are located throughout the mall. They're not exterior facing to a street. They're all within it's an outdoor center. So through where the customers are walking through, that's where we're trying to provide it. We do have a couple that's in the parking lot, but the intent was where the customers are walking through, they can see these advertisements. So we took a very strategic approach to that, where the high value areas where we see most traffic, foot traffic. And we have multiple sizes there, anywhere in from 13 by 18, 20 by 20, 11.5 by 36. We advertise everything. We advertise North Shore Medical Services. We advertise some of our tenants, a lot of our tenants, in fact. And it varies. It just varies from who has a ad program or marketing program that they want to introduce. It could be a Kia car maker, Samsung. It just varies.
If you haven't seen them, take a look, because we actually are pretty proud about the frame that we put them in. Oftentimes you'll see, I just don't think these things are done very well, and I think perhaps like some of the panel here, you're a little concerned about what that actually might look like, how they might appear. We actually put them in a little bit deeper frame. It's a nice metal frame that we actually worked very closely with the sign fabricator to create, so they're able to actually get in there, ratchet these things down so they're very tight. You don't see any drooping, any sagging. We have a very strict standard on how things are printed. The messaging, as Hide has already addressed, they're actually, I think, a pretty nice installation, and they actually complement Old Orchard quite nicely. And instead of, I do think of them as kind of an amenity. It is we do use them to convey messages to the consumer, but our tenants also use them as well. And as Hide said, North Shore healthcare systems, plenty of people have taken advantage of what that has to offer.
And what typically are the finishes on those stretched material? Can it be multiple finishes? Can it be glossy and
It's
and
typically
matte?
a matte finish. It's a PVC coated canvas typically, so it's got, it's got to be obviously, it's got to be able to handle the elements. It is outdoor, but it is a PVC coated kind of canvas or a nylon material that is able to have a little bit of stretch to it, and again is able to handle the elements. It's quite nice.
And what we've, as I mentioned earlier, if it's not in use, we have a Westfield special messaging. Some of the messaging we like to put there is use the parking structures. At Old Orchard, we have really lopsided. Everyone wants to park on the surface. We want them to park more on the parking decks. So we have messaging that says, try our parking structure, try our valet, try to send some message that will improve traffic overall in the mall. So I think that was where we felt pretty good in our messaging of what to do. Any questions on this corner? We'll move along. The Northwest. Northwest, we are proposing here not to demolish the existing canopy, but retrofit it. We found out that this is an actual photo here. We found out that these corners, if we took these off, the column spacing in between is just wide enough where you can create a drop-off lane. And this, while our new tenant, All Stars, is occupying this corner here, they didn't require valet service. We just thought this would be a nice amenity while maintaining the existing structure here and just recladding around it to a very similar material palette that we do with the other three corners. And again, here we're requesting another media panel. We're showing here additional landscaping, lighting throughout. We think this is going to be an overall a good improvement on the northwest corner.
This is really a gesture to our consumer. I mean, there's a chance here for a consumer to be dropped off and picked up. We can look out the window tonight and see we've got some weather challenges upon occasion in this climate. It's a really nice opportunity to not just be able to get dropped off and picked up at a curbside, but actually picked up and dropped off undercover. And really that's where the whole idea stemmed from. Pulling off the wing spaces did allow us to open up some sight lines to the adjacent tenant to where All Stars is currently fitting out. I think it's certainly a benefit and helped us lease that space. And I think it'll create a more dynamic and a more inviting opportunity here to an entry that to me right now is a little undersized, a little dark. And you can see the picture in the lower left there. It's not overly compelling. Hopefully we've made it at least a little bit more so.
Do you have, will there be enough height in the existing structure for ambulatory service?
We think we're close, and that is one thing we'll be vetting through as we develop these drawings. We're certainly aware of that requirement, and we actually did, at one point in time, I wanted to have a little chandelier in there to just kind of create a little beacon. That was clearly going to be in violation, so we did have that removed. Thank you, John. But I think we're there.
Okay.
We will definitely confirm that.
Any further questions?
I personally like the idea that you can drop someone off and pick them up under a covered, like, porte cochere. Unfortunately, the one that works best is probably the least likely mall entrance you would do that at.
The nice thing for us is, I agree with you, it's probably not if you were strategically doing this, it might not be the one you pick. The flip side of that occasion is this is the entrance that probably needs a little bit of help, and maybe this will just be that little shot in the arm that might help it along.
Okay. What else would you like to tell us this evening?
Okay, moving along. It's all part of this. Westfield is trying to provide a game-changing experience here. And part of that is going to be customer experience is number one. It's very important that from the beginning of their shopping trip, all the way back at home, when they're visiting a Westfield website, that they could find the mall, all the amenities, and they know what sort of discounts are happening or what events are being placed. So the shopper's trip starts there. And then they go on their trip, and they may have a GPS system, a handheld or a TomTom in their car. When they get to the mall, it's still critical that the first thing they see are these great exterior wayfinding. They know where the mall is, and then as they enter the mall outside entry, they're guided through the ring road and know exactly where they need to go in an approximate location. You got to chop these up in quarters. And then once you're inside, obviously wayfinding internally, I think we do a pretty good job of that as well with directories. Here, the exterior wayfinding program at Hawthorne right now is dated. It certainly needs some help. We are proposing to redo all existing wayfinding signs here. And these are broken out into different types. The two predominantly, the largest ones are these SP1s. These are the media pylon signs that we're proposing. This was actually proposed earlier down here. We took into consideration Plan Commission member comment and now have swapped it over to this side here. What you also see here, these SP2s, these are going to be shorter pylon signs, but they're only identifying the restaurant tenants within the mall. With restaurant tenants, they typically always want signage along the exterior perimeter. Unfortunately, with the number of restaurants that we're bringing in and the obligations that we have to our anchor tenants, we just couldn't fit it in all one big pylon. So how we're trying to differentiate this now is anchor tenants and media on these two larger ones. In the second tier, these are really going to be, at both of these entries, restaurant pylons. And in the site directionals, you'll see, I'll go through the graphics, are all updated, larger cap height, clearer, illuminated, and I think you'll find that it's going to be a lot more interesting and helpful to our customers. You can see here, these are some existing photos, and then what we're proposing. All these are illuminated. This here is the largest one that we were just talking about. We are requesting a 17 by 17 feet media panel. This would be, this one specifically will be LED, electronic. It will not be full motion, but it will be illuminated, and we'll have multiple signs rotating. We also have in here our 4 anchor tenants, our 4 department stores. We are required by our reciprocal easement agreement to include them. And then obviously our larger tenants, such as the AMC Theater and Dave & Buster's will be on this, total of 6 tenants. This was the second tier. This one is all of our restaurants. These aren't the actual names, these are just fictitious names, but this will allow our restaurant tenants to have some exposure to the street side.
How are those restaurant names illuminated?
These
They
are push-through letters, right?
Yeah, they're halo illuminated.
Okay.
We took some photos and superimposed to scale some of these pylons, what they would look like. This one is out of the outer ring road. Here's Sears, and Penny's would be off this page here. But this is the one off of 21. Just to give you some scale, 48 feet, while on paper may sound or seem very tall, in a 90-acre to 100-acre site like this, it's actually very appropriate, if not, in this case, looks too small. We've done some other photos here. This is actually turning in from the Amley corner. This is from 60, looking down. This one actually is just for reference. This is the 48-foot sign at the original location that we proposed. Now it's moved further west, so it's not the exact location, but only shown here as a reference to the size.
And this sign would actually not even be visible from this location in its currently proposed location.
These are some of the lower monument signs that we'll replace using the same design pattern, illuminated. And the ring road directionals. And these are the outer ring road existing signs.
Did you bring material samples of the signs?
This one, we do not have one right now. It's,
So you don't have the pattern, show how the pattern looks on the metal and,
we don't have one etched out, no.
okay.
Okay, anything else?
Those were the exterior signs. And then we do have a landscaping package that was included. I was not going to go through that.
That's fine.
And then a civil plan that was also
Yes.
attached.
We have those.
Okay. Yes. No. I don't think so. These are,
No.
they're faded, they're,
I believe those are just vinyl applied letters on a very faded and tired backdrop. So that's the low bar. We'll definitely improve from there.
Okay. I also note that you provided for the special use 18.1 comments to us, which we make part of our record, or 18.3, which we make part of our record. I can just verify notice went out for this. Okay, and do we receive anything we need to know about, other than what's in our packet?
No, sir.
Okay. Anything else you want to add at this point?
no, we think we're really excited to get this kicked off. As you can see, we have our 2 major tenants here tonight explaining their business, and we just can't wait to get this started. We think this will be a great addition to the mall, and thank you very much for your time.
Do any of your assembled group want to add anything?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time or at the conclusion, but there is a list in your staff report of proposed conditions. There is one condition that we would like to raise to your attention that as we stand here today, we know Westfield can't comply with. I believe it's condition number 8.
That's the written evidence that the adjacent anchor stores have approved the proposed project?
Correct.
Okay, why don't we just note that and we'll return to it, if that's fair. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, to the extent that this is a public hearing, before we have more discussion or additional questions between the commission and staff, does anyone from the public want to comment on the proposal and the requested special use permits that are before us, as well as the preliminary and final site landscaping and architectural elevation plans? Okay, well then, seeing no great rush to the podium, since no one from the public, will close the public hearing portion of it, of this evening's presentation. With respect to what we've heard this evening, and maybe it's most appropriate to address to staff at this point, there are staff comments with respect to these signs. Do you want to comment on it, either John or Mike?
Well, I think as you see in the report, and Mike did a nice job walking through the list and the like, we're supportive of the sign package as presented, with the exception of the site pylon media signs, which are the 48-footers. I think they've done a nice job overall enhancing or greatly improving deficient signs, both in terms of the wayfinding throughout the ring, adjacent to the ring road, and the signage that will be going onto the building itself. And I think that goes hand in hand with the overall enhancements provided for the landscape, or with the landscaping, and also the architecture of the building, and those entrances that these improvements are being applied to. So, like I said, from that standpoint, we're supportive of the proposals as you've shown. I think the signage is very unique and provides some great interest that has been sorely lacking for a long time at this location. With regards to the site pylon media signs, and then the media panels, I'll stick with the pylon sign to start with. I mean, staff standpoint, the 48-foot height of these signs is just too big. I'll get right to the point. I think it's too big. It's overbearing for both the adjacent roads, and the LED panel is significant and what we feel is a drawback for that sign itself. I think, as I noted in my report, and Hide's used the word several times, so I'm glad I was able to provide some things. It is a game changer along both roads, and it will change the character of the adjacent roads with the implementation of those two signs. I get it. I understand why they hope to have that, but we have nothing to compare that to in this community, and I don't see, the last several signs, monument signs that have been approved, or I should say multi-tenant signs that have been approved along there. The board has struggled to go above 22, 23, 24 feet in height. So it's just, I just can't recommend the height of the sign, nor can I recommend the use of an LED panel on that at that location. The other issue with regards to signage comes down to a matter of on-premise versus off-premise signs, and advertising, I should say. On-premise advertising is advertising of those businesses that exist on the property where the signs are located. Off-premise is exactly what was previously described. We don't do that here in Vernon Hills, never have, and would not suggest that we implement that type of, or allow that type of signage going forward. Again, it opens the entire community, and especially the retail areas, up to this type of signage if we allow it here. There's no uniqueness to it, and as such, we are not recommending off-premise advertising signs to be at this location at this time. The remainder of the variations are pretty straightforward with regards to the signage. And like I said, we're supportive of the request, again, with the exception of the media pylon sign, and also with the exception of allowing for off-premise advertising signage. So that's our comments there.
Do you want anything, Mike? Do you want to add anything?
No, I think John summarized it pretty well, so.
Okay. Any comments on the commission? Perhaps first on the sign issue?
Well, I was looking at the depiction on page 31 with the sign, the current sign versus the proposed sign. And there's a vehicle parked next to it. It just looks humongous.
Mhm.
There's no reason for a sign that big.
That's the 48-footer.
Right.
And maybe I can add, it would be, I think, realistic or reasonable to come back with a different height of a sign that would allow for them to do some additional, advertising of their anchor tenants and the like. So I think consistent with the existing height of the existing sign, or something along the lines that they're proposing at the other, that has the multi-tenant signage as shown for the restaurants. I think that's definitely appropriate here, and I think that is something that I think we would support having them develop or mirror as for these two locations for the larger 48-foot signs.
Anybody else? Scott?
I have a hard time supporting 100% variation anywhere. This is close to 100% variation on the height of this sign compared to what is currently on the site. So that in itself is a red flag when I'm looking at this stuff. And as far as the LED component of this sign, there really isn't anything in this region besides Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire does have a sign that's down there, but as far as Vernon Hills is concerned, there isn't anything like it. And I have a hard time supporting the potential of a moving sign, even though we saw it as static images that rotate. At least that's what I heard. I have a hard time supporting that LED, or even the potential of an LED moving sign, even with static images that rotate. So those two signs, the SP1 signs, I struggle with those. I really, really like the signage on site, especially those that reference specifically 21 and 60 by number. I think those are going to be really effective signs for people who come and shop here from out of town or from farther away. And I think those are going to be really, really helpful for them as they leave the center. As far as signage goes, I have no other issues really with the heights of some of these pylon signs. I do agree that there is a significant scale to be dealt with as far as a 100-acre site and the massing of this building. It's big. People are going to be seeing signs from a large distance. So I gather that. And you do need to have certain size on your signs, but as far as the specific ones that are two in total, one off of 21 and one off of 60, I think those are large, and they need to be reconsidered.
Anybody else? I mean, from my standpoint, the SP1 sign does appear to be disproportionately large. I do agree with Mr. Kalmar's comments that doesn't mean that something larger than what is out there now would not be appropriate because of the, they're not true anchors, but they're essentially anchor type uses there. to be able to have those highlighted on a sign, you know, outside the mall. So I wouldn't probably have a problem with. I'm going to say something which now will sound remarkably contradictory, but I'll try anyways. In general, I probably don't typically mind LED signs because of their ability to be viewed, and they pop more than a regular sign. However, on a major road, and the one I hearken to is the one that's out in Rosemont, it is probably the world's worst traffic nightmare because of the glare it puts on the road. I don't know whether this would do it or not on Route 60, especially in the rain or weather like this, but that always has been an issue with me with LED signs. As far as the off-premises advertising, I'm troubled a bit by it because we essentially don't have off-premises advertising in town. And although we want to treat this as a PUD, which would be special, I can picture the line outside the door of Village Hall with other retail uses seeking a similar type. And I'm a little bit afraid of that slippery slope. With regard to the actual, those flat static signs, I really have no problem with them. Quite candidly, I'll tell you, the way they're depicted in the packet, which are more as fashion statements, I actually kind of like. My guess is you wouldn't do that, but I think it does have a nice complementary use on the building. In terms of the other signs, the directional signs, I would agree, are probably far past their current life and should have been replaced earlier, and that's certainly a tremendous improvement. In terms of having directional signs with respect to the various uses, I think that also be very helpful because of the new uses going into this building at different corners so you can find them, which I think would also be very important. So when you look at the signs, what I would like to see, and it's ultimately up to what the commission, obviously the board and yourself decide to do, is perhaps a different, larger SP1 type sign that may be larger than what's out there now, but it's not necessarily at the same scope and massing and size as the one that's depicted for us. Anybody else? And we'll give you a chance to respond to all this. One of the other things that was brought up were the operations of the theater. We had some questions. Is there a way that some of those questions can be, I guess, defined a little bit more in terms of some of the things that Scott asked? Are there going to be, you know, so-called family theaters versus ones with alcohol? You know,
well,
what are the hours, except those type of questions?
Yeah, I think that's something that we'll ask the theater folks to specifically address going forward. And, you know, because we don't have a liquor license classification that allows for service within a theater right now, well, we're going to have to create a classification, and I think we can answer those questions as a part of creating that license. And I, you know, clearly ring out that topic and answer those questions. Because I'm sure the board, in fact, is, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but I will. They will want the details.
Right.
They'll want to know before you get a liquor license. So that's all going to have to be brought forth and in some kind of written package form. So, okay. Yeah.
With respect to Condition 8, which reads, prior to issuance of any building permit, I should rephrase it, proposed Condition 8, Westfield shall provide written evidence that the adjacent anchor stores have approved the proposed project. I know we heard that as a petitioner you have an issue with that, and we'll hear from you in a second, but what is the staff rationale or purpose behind that?
Well, I think the concern is that there will be construction that crosses the property lines, and it will impact either from, you know, it could be as little as landscaping to as much as having the parking lot on the north side of the building torn up and crossing some property line. So it's just an acknowledgement on the part of the adjacent property owners that they recognize the construction and understand that, and maybe that's what it needs to be, a recognition that the construction is going to occur. Because the concern, I think, from our standpoint is they get into construction and an adjacent anchor tenant comes back and says, wait a minute, I didn't know, and they take some kind of action to shut down the project.
This is like the letters of understanding or explanation we require some builders to give.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that with like
Residential.
residential, where they back up to a railroad track or to a major road or something like that, or and that could satisfy it potentially. So,
Well, maybe the first question is, and I guess this is to Westfield, and I'm not sure who at Westfield. Are the anchor tenants, to use the colloquial expression, on board?
With respect to the anchor tenants, we do have a reciprocal easement agreement with them that requires their approval. So we are seeking approval right now. We do have the majority of the approvals set right now. So the documentation's still in the works, but we do have conceptual approval, verbal approval.
So you're getting it, and you think you also have to go get it, or you're required to. So then what is the problem with the condition from Westfield's perspective? Each approval has different, let's say, deal terms that are not, we feel, appropriate for public disclosure. Each are different between the two parties, and disclosure would be detrimental to our business. So we'd like to find a way where we can assure you that we have approval, but not having to disclose the actual documents becoming a public document. And that's, I think, our concern.
well, I think that's definitely doable, and you know, it's not a matter of we need to know the terms of the deal. I think the issue here is have Sears write us a letter saying they've seen the plans and they approve what's been shown. That's it. I mean, it's literally that simple. I don't care about the deal. I just want to be able to say, hey, Sears, when you show up and you bitch about the project, I got a letter that says you signed off on it, and we're going ahead. You know, and that's really the issue. We're not looking for the numbers. We don't care about the numbers, quite frankly.
As a possible consideration, would it work for the village to have a certification from an officer of Westfield that they've obtained all of the anchor approvals?
I mean,
Bob?
Or at least for consideration?
If you're looking towards me?
Yes. 'Cause I'm not sitting as the lawyer today.
Well, my initial reaction to that, I have a couple of thoughts. One, are we looking for approval, or one, are we looking for acknowledgement that they're on notice? So that's one distinction. If we're to the point where we're looking for approval and an officer of Westfield is certifying that the anchors have been notified, I think that probably gets us where we want to be one step removed. But still, I think it gets there, because we say to an anchor, as far as the village is concerned in issuing permits, we've been notified that you've been notified, so there should be no problem. Now, while there's a problem, they're going to say there's a problem, but I think that gives us the ability to say, then go talk to Westfield. That may not, you know, and then our decision is, do we let that construction keep going until, you know, it gets more serious? You know, part of the problem, I suppose, if I'm if I'm Westfield, is I want to get approval from one of the anchors, and that's an opportunity for an anchor to say, you know, well, I needed something from you, so you got to give me this in order to get, you know, for me to give you the acknowledgement. And that's not fair. You know, in my opinion, it's not fair. I mean, we got a public hearing, they got notice, they know, you know, there's an REA in place that would allow them to do that. So I think the idea of getting Westfield's certification that notice was given gets us.
Let me ask you this. Am I correct that certain portions of the work extend beyond the Westfield lot lines onto lots that are owned by one of the four anchors?
There will be, for example, the signage are all over the place, and they will be, some will be on Macy's property, some
Okay,
will be.
but let's do this in baby steps. What about, you went entrance by entrance. Is any of the entrance work or the additional building, I'll call it, for Dave & Buster's and for the theater, would it be off the Westfield property on property that is owned by one of the anchors?
No, with the exception of, let's just revisit this one area.
Don't you refer to that, and there's Pennies, that
Yeah.
there's an encroachment on Pennies, and then there's an encroachment on Sears as well?
I don't believe, I think we were successful in not encroaching Pennies. As you can see, we were
Seriously?
trying to avoid their loading dock. At one point, this theater was going above it. We worked with AMC to avoid that, so there are no air right issues. The other one I was pointing out, this is the Sears property line that goes like this. So yes, we're doing some landscaping work in there,
Okay.
but that's about it. Everything else
Okay.
is within Westfield property.
Okay, when someone comes in for a building permit, Mike, if part of the work that they're doing is on someone else's property, do you require the other property owner to either acquiesce or approve or be a signatory or whatever the right word is?
Yeah, we would need some verification that the owner of that property is authorized to work on their property.
Okay, so is that really maybe the way to address this, is in two steps? Is one, to get the representation or the letter that you suggested, or that was talked about? And then two, if you seek a building permit and the building permit is going to be for any work that is off your site on someone else's, you're going to have to comply with whatever we require in terms of getting that owner to be in agreement? And is that the process, basically?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, would that do it, John and Bob? Oh, wait, we have someone else wants to weigh in.
Hi, this is John Genovese at Westfield. Yeah, I mean, shopping centers are a unique animal, the way they're REAs and how they're controlled and cross easement rights. So we have, obviously, as the owner and manager of the shopping center, we have rights. Obviously, maintaining all these parcels, and a lot of them, we're maintaining parcels we don't own. It's just the nature of the business. That's the nature of the, the agreements. So I think when it gets to the certification we were just talking about, if we're certifying that have the ability to do this, we obviously know the documents and what we're allowed to do. Vis-a-vis those documents, obviously relative to what we were talking about approvals, we have a package. Obviously, we're doing many things. Well, the documents vary from anchor to anchor, so we don't want to get into a situation where you're asking somebody to approve something that they don't have approval rights over. So obviously, to the people holding out their hands for things, we try to avoid that. But we obviously, everything that we've done here, we've talked to all the anchors, and obviously they know the investment that we're making here in the shopping center, and it's obviously a benefit to them. So hopefully I think the certification, getting back to your question, really, would certify that we know the documents, we know what we're permitted to do. We're following that. That doesn't mean that, we get calls when we start construction. Sears calls us up and starts complaining about something. They may call you as well. And it's typically they call because, a customer's inconvenience, and we deal with that on a regular basis.
And you have a similar understanding to what we've heard from Mr. Atkinson in terms of that if there is construction or work that is on another individual's or corporation's property or impacts it, they have to be made part of this building permit process as well?
Well, I think it was speaking to that our certification, I guess, would cover the fact that we would know the documents and we know what we're permitted to do. Because I can't speak to each one of the documents because they're all different with the department stores, but in the case of doing like landscaping, if it's on Sears' parcel, that may already be covered, that we're permitted.
It might be, but my point is much simpler. It's from the village's standpoint, we are not privy to all those documents. And if you come in with a request for a building permit to the building department, and it looks like you're doing work on property that you're not shown as the record owner of, we're going to ask a question: why are you across the line, and do you have that person's approval or permission? So we just need to make sure that that can be addressed.
To the extent that that's a village-wide requirement with respect to your codes and your building permit, obviously Westfield will comply with what your building codes require.
And just for clarification, I think we're talking about two different things. In terms of an acknowledgement from Westfield, my perspective was not that an acknowledgement from Westfield that we have the rights to do this and that that's the letter we were getting. My reaction was more that Westfield is giving the anchor tenants notice that Westfield is doing this work so that we can take that and to an anchor and say, you've gotten notice. And the other piece of the puzzle is every property owner is looking to the village to make sure that we're issuing permits for work on property that the owner says they own. And that's, you know, I see that as one of the village's responsibilities to do that. And so you've got an REA, to me, you're going to have to show us that under this REA with this anchor, this provision says we have the right to do what we're doing. That might be sufficient because that's a legal recorded document, but we're going to have to see something so that we have the ability to respond to the adjacent guy.
Yeah.
If you look at C4 in your civil, have that prove it on the slide.
That's the Sears. That's the parking lot between Sears and JCPenney's. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is probably the one that makes us the most nervous, is simply the extent of the improvement that is extending over onto the Sears, to the point where, if I read this correctly, you're affecting one of the two entrances into Sears, you know, with sidewalk curb work, and then grading within the parking lot, along with some of the utility relocations that are going to occur there. And I think it's a significant, I mean, you're chewing a hole into their parking lot. And really, it's a matter of having them acknowledge that, A, they understand you're going to do that, and they understand the extent of what's being proposed here. Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's a good point. Most REAs that we operate under, any utility relocations are approved without formal notification. So that utility work, I think we'll have to double check an REA, but I think that's typically covered. With respect to, yes, the sidewalk there that I pointed out earlier, that's where we're impacting with landscaping and new curbs.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I mean, I think I did bring that up earlier, but for the most part, I think the utilities are covered typically.
And again, I mean, all the anchors are aware of this. They've seen this. We're in conversations with them, but also as the managing agent for the shopping center, we have certain rights under the REAs to make changes to the common areas as the party responsible. So it's a kind of a balance between they obviously see it and our rights to be able to make changes.
I guess from the village's standpoint, show us where it is in the document, and show us what gives you the right to go over on the property as shown in the improvement plans and do what's shown. You know, if there's something in the REA that says specifically or that you can do this, we'll take a look at it. And again, we don't have the ability to give you the right to work on somebody else's property without them saying okay.
We'll provide some form of evidence.
Yeah.
If we don't have to limit it as to what that is, but
Yeah.
provide some form of evidence.
Yes.
So, in other words, the two-step process we're going to talk about, there's a general certification, everybody knows about it, and there's knowledge. And when it does impact or it goes over the line, that there's some ability for us to issue a building permit on my neighbor's property for me to build my garage. Okay? Okay.
Thanks.
So that will change. Any other questions or comments by the commission? Okay, would you like to add anything after you heard some of our comments?
Can I speak to the
Yes.
signage?
Mm-hmm.
I know we've used your term game changing. it actually, obviously in your report, you're referencing it a different way in game-changing in the community. We actually see the investment here as a game change. We do need to do a game change here at the center, and obviously what we're proposing here with the addition of the theater, with Dave & Buster's, with the additional restaurants, and the improvements to the shopping center, we want to make a substantial change. We want people to know that we've done something here. We've added uses that have been requested, and that goes, because it's such a large site, that goes from obviously what we're doing at the entrances, and you see we've made a purposeful statement at each entrance to show that we've done something, but we want to carry that to the curb. The best way to carry that out from the building to the curb is the various signage elements, and obviously the two large signs are part of that. We realize that they're substantially larger than what's there before, but there for a reason. We think they are proportionate to the size of the shopping center. You know, at 1.5 million square feet, obviously we're a very big complex. And we want something that basically as people are driving by, that they know that significant changes have been made here. And the combination of obviously the sign, the anchor stores, names are very important, but we live in a digital world, and digital images people connect with, and having those ability to do those statements, yes, we're asking for the ability to do advertising, but we also want the ability to be able to do advertising that relates to the tenants that we have, whether it's the theaters, whether it's Dave & Buster's, whether it's the restaurant, or whether it's something that's special that's going on here. We want to be, front of mind with people as they're coming by the center, because unfortunately not everybody that comes by the center is one of our customers today, or they're not a regular customer. We want to make them a regular customer. So we are trying to make a difference, and we're trying to get that difference out to the curb.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone on the commission? Staff?
I do have one.
Scott? Sure.
As far as the outreach of marketing on the signs on the building, I can see that, because the people are on the premise and they're being targeted by these images. I see that as being logical, even effective. But at the curb, when you're talking about taking that out to the curb, where you're marketing the broad spectrum out at the curb, and you're not necessarily focusing on marketing the center itself, I see marketing the center itself at the curb as being a great thing, not necessarily monitoring a business that's in Libertyville or Lincolnshire or Highland Park at the curb. And that's the way I feel about that.
Jeff?
Can I comment, or?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're what we're trying to sell is a lifestyle. We obviously, as everybody knows, the shopping center environment has a significant competition with the internet. That's fine. The most successful retailers out there are what's called omni-channel. They have stores, they have brick and mortar stores, they're on the internet. But what we want is that special environment, that lifestyle that draws people from saying, you know what, I don't want to go and order that shirt online. I want to go to the shopping center and buy it. That obviously benefits us. That benefits, you from a perspective of taxes. So it's really those signs, again, really to us, denote a lifestyle and an environment that we're trying to create here. We want something that people want to come back. Again, that's the whole reasoning for adding the type of uses that we're adding with the restaurants and the entertainment. But the images get to the lifestyle, and people driving by, whether they see images, and it could be obviously not trying to promote things that are sold outside of the of Vernon Hills, but trying to promote a lifestyle and that environment. So to us, it kind of goes, hand in hand. I guess if there's a way to, say that we're not purposefully trying to promote sales outside of the municipality, we're not trying to do that. but
Kind of hard not to.
yeah, and believe me, I read the comments, trying to figure out a creative way to address your, concern and trying to give us the flexibility to do that lifestyle marketing that we want. If there's a way that we can compromise, that would be wonderful.
I just had a comment about the sign that's up there. I think, for the most part, most of the area residents already know where the mall is. I don't think that the size of this new sign is actually going to bring new people into the mall. I think most people already know where the mall is, and if they haven't been here, once they find it, the size of the sign is not going to bring them in. As far as the LEDs go, I think it could be a dangerous element along the road. As you said, it's digital age, and people are easily distracted. And if there's a 17-foot by 17-foot, moving image right alongside the road, I think it just might distract drivers in our area.
In terms of your rebranding, and in terms of the bringing the mall and the center to a new age, which you refer to as a digital age, the static signs that are on the building itself, that right now I kind of characterize as looking kind of fashion-like, what if some of those were LEDs instead?
We'd love to, it's just the expense of the signs. So obviously trying to reach the most people is obviously on the major streets. So that's the sole reason for it. If the economics were such that we can afford to make all those signs digital, you'd love to, because you could change them on a regular basis. And obviously, to my earlier point, and obviously some of those images are fashion. Again, it gets to the point of trying to sell the lifestyle, try to sell the brand. Now that lifestyle image could be Coach, and doing a campaign, very, very lifestyle, very fashion forward, or it could be something that Westfield puts together to just get out in people's mind that, it's spring, it's time to buy new clothes. So, but it's just really a matter of the economics and the cost of the signs, why there is a difference with the ones at the street being the digital and the ones on the building right now being, static.
You talked about the word compromise. Something would be considered by Westfield is to have the ones on the street perhaps not be LED and a little bit smaller, and have some of the ones on the building be LED? Kind of
Relative to-
swapping position, if you will. But before you answer, let me just say one thing. The one we would probably have difficulty, and I say we without talking to my brethren around me, is the north one that would face towards at least the apartments and some of the townhomes. That one probably we would say no to, but some of the other ones. Like I'm looking at page 08, and probably the east-facing sign on the cinema, for instance, that large one. And that's just by way of example and discussion, not because I've had a secret discussion with anybody.
Yeah, look, we would love the option for the signs on the building to be LED. Right now, we just think the economics are such that static is the way to go. Relative to the signs on the street, we certainly still love the LED. If we could, I guess, get the sign and still make them, static. Not going to say no to that, again, because we're trying to promote that, lifestyle imagery. LED is the best way to do that because we can change them on, on the frequency that obviously that's permitted. Obviously, don't want to create traffic concerns. That's not our goal.
Okay. Anybody else?
On the static signs on the building, actually, I thought they were really, they can be attractive, and I understand that you're trying to create some sort of advertising or something up there, and I agree that we don't want to advertise for anything outside of Vernon Hills, but, I've just used an example. If Chanel wanted to go up there for 2 weeks or something like that, to me, that's not an issue because it's a product that obviously you could buy in the mall, and I wouldn't be adverse to that. I would have a problem if you were advertising for
That should be enough.
a restaurant down in Lincolnshire or something like that. But I think they could possibly work that way, and I would be willing to go that far with that. As far as the sign out on the street, I'm not against the LED. Maybe it's the size is the issue, the height.
Right.
and maybe some recreation of that sign in a different configuration, and maybe it could work.
Look, we'd be happy to limit and say that none of those signs would advertise a business that's outside of Vernon Hills. That's not a problem. So we're not here to advertise a restaurant in another town. We have our own restaurants, so that's not our goal. So that's very easy for us to, I think, agree to. Now, obviously, the only issue with that would be, as we mentioned earlier, if there's a hospital that happens to be regional and is outside and wants to advertise, you may not want to limit us to do that, right? Because our customers, so that could be the, a definition, but certainly be willing to work with you on how to do that. The restaurant example you mentioned, easy for us to agree to.
Mr. Chairman, if I kind of feel like now's the time to speak up. One of the issues that's going to be difficult in trying to work, something that works for both sides is this sometimes troublesome concept of the First Amendment. Once we allow off-premise advertising, we can't say to you what you can advertise and what you can't advertise. If once the village opens the door to off-premise, we have no control. We can't say that. So now we're left in a position of relying on, a statement you make or a commitment you make that you don't have to live up to because we can't enforce. So I guess it's just an acknowledgement that when we try and work something out, that First Amendment's going to be troublesome for me in doing that. I'm not trying to stop a settlement. I'm just trying to identify that concept is troublesome.
Could I ask for clarification on that as far as what Jim suggested? They put an advertisement up for a particular type of perfume that happens to be sold at various stores in the mall. Would you consider that an off-premise advertisement?
No, I would fall on the side of that's on-premise advertising. I don't think on-premise advertising is strictly limited to the name of the store, but we get ourselves into a scenario. We don't have to watch that sign and say everything that flashes up there has got to be on the store, but it is going to be an enforcement issue, and we're going to come down on them for one simple advertisement. So, okay, they take that off, and 3 months later, inadvertently, it goes back on because the person who's controlling the message isn't really in the loop of the discussions we're having because he's in corporate and he's got contracts with advertisers. So, yes, to answer your question, I would say that would be on premise.
But you could go even as far as this. At certain times of the year when they park cars within the mall, or they have all the different kiosks, or whatever it may be, it can go very broad strokes. So, for instance, let's say Cadillac chooses to park a bunch of cars in the mall during a certain time of the year. Well, that was a product that was literally marketed and sold potentially.
But it wasn't sold there.
Maybe they could be.
Well, then I wouldn't have a problem with it.
But the whole thing is, maybe they were only there for 3 days out of the year.
Okay, here's what I think we're going to do. There is right now condition 11 in the staff report, which reads, one of the conditions is off-premise advertising is prohibited for any exterior sign on the property. Rather than vote that as a condition, we'll consider that as a separate motion that we can then send to the board with the particular comments of both you as well as us. So it won't be part of the overall package, okay? Similarly, there's the question of the sign package, which includes, the SP1 sign, which is the only one that I think we've been talking about. We'll pull that out and do that as a separate motion as well for the same thing. And then there'll be more clearer guidance on everything. Okay. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, we obviously thank you for your listening to us.
Thank you. Okay. What we have this evening are a series of motions. The procedures and process in front of this commission is that we have a motion to recommend approval that then requires a second, and we vote on it. The vote can either be in the affirmative to recommend approval or in the negative to not recommend approval to the village board, whereas I think you all know the ultimate decision lies. There is in the staff report, which I think everyone has received and is available at the village, conditions of approval that have been suggested by staff. First being general compliance with the plans that have been submitted, and then there are 13 numbered conditions. Condition 11 we are pulling out and we'll consider separately. The condition 8, which was prior issuance of the building permit, we're revising to read
that prior to issuance of a building permit, Westfield shall provide the following. Certificate saying that the anchor tenants have been notified about the pending improvements, and a certificate demonstrating that the REA allows Westfield to construct certain improvements on adjacent anchor tenant property.
Okay, so that's the new condition 8 in lieu of the one that was in. In addition, there was a clarification which we'll add as, however we're numbering it, I don't know, we're going to keep the same numbering. Additional operational details will need to be provided by the theater, prior to the issuance, but I think that would probably become anyways. Okay, so what we have is we have a series of motions. All of these motions would be pursuant to those conditions that we just discussed, as well as whether we recommend or do not recommend the additional one as it relates to the off-premise advertising. The first motion is a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit for a planned unit development for that portion of the subject property, excluding the 4 anchor tenant properties, to allow for A, expansion and remodeling of the existing commercial building commonly known as Westfield Hawthorne Shopping Mall, and B, certain variations related to the signage as listed in Exhibit A, the building heights and setbacks as set forth in the Hawthorne entitlement package dated 12/12/12, that was clever, in recognition of a blended parking ratio regardless of use type of 5.0 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross leasable area for the inline shopping mall area owned by Westfield and the 4 anchors, but with B, that is specifically not including at this point the off-premise signage or the 48-foot SP1 sign. We're going to do those separately. Okay? So everybody clear what we're moving on? We need a second then.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on that particular motion, subject to the conditions with the 2 removals? Okay. We need a roll call.
Mr. Ballou.
Yes.
Ms. Cotton. Mr. Hesner.
Yes.
Mr. Heidner.
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone.
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Corr.
That passes. Secondly, we have a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit to allow an entertainment use movie theater with alcohol service within the theater lobby and each theater and food service within the individual theaters, all occurring within the building addition at the northeast section of the shopping mall, subject to the conditions of approval that we've previously referenced. We need a second for that.
I'll second.
Okay? Any discussion on that
Yes.
one? Okay.
In this motion, it says, with alcohol service within the theater lobby. It doesn't necessarily identify that alcohol can be consumed within the theater itself
Then I misread, and each theater.
and each theater.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we need a roll call vote on that.
Mr. Ballou.
Yes.
Ms. Cotton. Mr. Hesner.
No.
Mr. Heidner.
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone.
No.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. That passes?
Yep.
And that passes. Thirdly, we have a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit to allow restaurants serving alcoholic beverages in various locations within the subject property as defined on pages 18 through 20 of the Hawthorne entitlement package dated 12/12/12, subject to the conditions of approval previously discussed and whether any additional ones are voted on. We need a second for that.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Then we need a roll call.
Mr. Gorog. Mr. Mulcrone.
Yes.
Mr. Heidner.
Yes.
Mr. Hesner,
Yes.
Ms. Cotton, Mr. Baloo,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit to allow a restaurant serving alcoholic beverages and containing an arcade with up to 200 electronic games or amusement devices for the proposed Dave & Buster's location as set forth on pages 10, 10A, and 11 of the Hawthorne entitlement package dated 12/12/12, subject to the previously discussed conditions of approval and whether we add any additional ones. We need a second for that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We need a roll call.
Mr. Baloo,
Yes.
Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner,
Yes.
Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes.
Mr. Gorg.
Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final site and landscape plan approvals consistent with the plans set forth in the Hawthorne entitlement package dated 12/12/12 and subject to the conditions of approval, and that specifically, although it's in the package, does not include the off-premise advertising yet or the 48-foot sign, because those will be separately considered. Okay. We need a second for that.
I have a question.
Sure.
They're out of order in the packet.
Yeah, okay.
There's a page.
Okay, okay.
What was that?
Okay.
Pages 21 and 22 are out of
All
order.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yours is right. Okay, so you need a second for that, though.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that motion 5? Then we need a roll call.
Mr. Baloo,
Yes.
Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner,
Yes.
Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Mr. Gorog, Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay, next we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final approval of the architectural elevations and exterior finishes consistent with the plans set forth in the Hawthorne entitlement package dated 12/12/12, subject to the conditions of approval, and specifically not including the portions of the package for off-premises advertising and the 48-foot SP1 sign, because we'll consider those separately.
I'd like to add one additional condition, and that the Dave & Buster's folks provide a material sample board for the exterior materials on their building, because we don't have one tonight, and we need one.
Do we have for everything else?
We do for the mall part of it, so
Is that?
pretty straightforward. Do you have
Oh,
it?
you do?
Well, then bring it out.
You were hiding it.
Great. Okay, we got it, so.
Okay, I'll make that part of the record, too.
Yeah, good.
Right.
Then I retract my
Okay.
condition.
Can we add something to the effect of the portions that go above the existing structure of specifically the the west side and the south side of the new cinema structure have the same consistent architectural treatment?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, that's
So are we
an additional whatever, got that.
Right.
Okay, do we need a second for that with the addition?
going to be included?
No, those are separate. Yes, John.
Question.
Mhm.
These little jobbers,
The static signs.
the static signs, I know, are they included in this motion if they are not off-premise advertising, or are we pulling
We're
them
taking
complete?
off-premise out of,
This
But
is, this is just strictly architecture right now. The next one's going to be
Right.
the sign package. The next motion.
Okay. well, might-
right now, we voted on nothing with
Okay, that's
off-premise
fine.
advertising.
Okay.
Right.
I'll wait for my question.
Okay, so we need a second for 6, okay. Mr. Heidner. And we need, any discussion? We need a roll call.
Mr. Baloo,
Yes.
Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner,
Yes.
Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Mr. Gorog, Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final approval of the signage plans consistent with the plans set forth in the Hawthorne entitlement package dated 12/12/12, but not including the site media pylon sign, which has been referred to as SP1, or any off-premise advertising, which will handle both of those separately, subject to all the conditions of approval we've discussed. We need a second for that.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
So we're pulling those signs.
The
We're
big one.
We're pulling the big one.
I got the big one part.
And we're pulling any
Not-
off-premise advertising.
Off-premise.
Right, so, but we're still leaving the actual sign.
The sign is
Yes.
there, but not for off-premise yet.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay, we understand? Okay. We need a roll call on that.
Mr. Baloo?
Yes.
Ms. Cotton? Mr. Hesner?
Yes.
Mr. Heidner?
No.
Mr. Mulcrone?
Yes.
Mr. Gorog? Chairman Morris?
Yes. Okay. Okay. Now, what we've pulled are off-premise advertising and the SP1 sign.
Right.
So we're going to handle both of those separately through motions. First would be, because as we do motions to approve. Motion to recommend preliminary and final approval of the signage plan for the site media pylon sign denominated SP1, subject to the other conditions of approval, which do not yet include anything about off-premise. Okay? So we need a second for that. Remember, we can vote yes or no on it.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? No one? Okay.
Anything additional?
Nothing additional. Okay. We have a roll call then.
Mr. Baloo?
No.
Ms. Cotton? Mr. Hesner?
No.
Mr. Heidner?
No.
Mr. Mulcrone?
No.
Mr. Gorog? Chairman Morris?
No. Okay. Then we have a motion to recommend approval of off-premise advertising on the, what are they called? The exterior flat.
That would be the media,
The media panels, is that what they're called?
right? You did.
Okay, so it would be a motion to recommend preliminary and final approval of off-premise advertising on the media panels and the SP1 sign, I guess is how it would be phrased? Or you want to do it separate?
Could
Do
I
it separate.
suggest automatic media panels and static media panels?
So let's do two then.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a motion to recommend approval of off-premise advertising on the static media panels. That's the first one. And those are the ones that are actually on the building proper. So we need a second on that we can vote on.
Sorry, could you repeat the motion?
Can I repeat? No. It's a motion to recommend approval of off-premise advertising on the static media panels. We're cutting condition 11 up. Okay?
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion there? Okay, we need the roll call.
Mr. Baloo?
No.
Ms. Cotton? Mr. Hesner?
No.
Mr. Heidner?
No.
Mr. Mulcrone?
No.
Mr. Gorog? Chairman Morris?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval of off-premise advertising on the, what did we,
Automatic media panels?
the automatic media panels, which
Or
is the,
automated.
or automated, which is the SP1 sign. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. We need a second for that.
Second.
Okay, we have a second.
Okay, sorry.
Any discussion on that one? Okay, we need a roll call on that.
Mr. Baloo?
No.
Ms. Cotton? Mr. Hesner?
No.
Mr. Heidner?
No.
Mr. Mulcrone?
No.
Mr. Gorog? Chairman Morris?
No. Did I miss anything? Or do we have it all now?
Hey, that's it.
With regards to the 48-foot sign, do you want to give them an option of providing a lower height sign at a not-to-exceed option?
Anybody?
How do we come up with that not to exceed option in this particular hearing?
Well, I guess the question would be is, do they have a suggestion? That would be my first question. And then the existing signs that are out there right now are 25 feet tall.
Right.
And you could use those as a not to exceed. Because if they go forward as with the current recommendation,
I think so. Absolutely.
if they go forward and the board denies it or supports your recommendation, then they will have no sign there.
So just so you know, the maximum sign is, the village has done so far is 25 and how far that is.
Right. And the existing signs that are out there are 25 feet.
Yeah.
with appreciation for the consideration, at this point, we honestly don't have a suggestion below 48, so we just leave it at the motion that you have
Okay.
at this point in time.
Rather than giving you a motion, then, if anybody on the commission wants to, for lack of a better word, make a statement as to what they would, find something would be considered, we can entertain that now, so at least you can hear it. Anybody have any comments? You started.
I think I'm not adverse to them going higher than 25. I don't have a problem with that. I think the 48 was just a bit too extreme. I think a good reference point, maybe, I'm not sure how tall that bank building is on the corner, but maybe not to see anything taller than that, maybe, or something maybe in that range, maybe that would be the limit of it.
Yeah, I think
just as a thought.
I think what might have been helpful would have been like a 2D elevation of the neighboring buildings versus these forced perspectives where you're trying to just estimate how tall these are, but something more like a reference point, like you said, like the bank building or maybe the Qdoba, just something to give us relative height.
If it helps the commission, the mall itself right now, before the addition of the cinema, is approximately 43 feet tall.
The mall itself, you said?
Yeah, as it stands right now.
What are the size signs at the other shopping centers?
The ones at Hawthorne Square and River Tree are approximately 25 feet tall.
25?
Yeah.
So there's
Give or take a foot,
They're
but somewhere in
current
that range, yeah.
Was Fashion Square the same?
Yeah, Hawthorne Square, formerly Hawthorne Fashion Square.
I'm sorry. Okay, and in River Tree?
River Tree, 25 feet.
Got
Marcus, Marketplace? Is that bigger?
Marketplace is about the same size,
Is
too.
it?
Marketplace, that's a much shorter sign.
Or is it?
And then Hawthorne Village Commons and Hawthorne Commons are also a little shorter, somewhere in the 18, 19-foot range.
Okay. Anybody else? I mean, as I said before, I personally do not think I have a problem with something bigger than 25 because of what you're trying to portray. Something less than 48, but what that number is, I guess I don't really know.
That might be enough direction.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's why I kind of use that bank building as a reference because you already have that height all on the corner there already, and maybe that's. I know it'll be down from a block, but it's still. I mean, you've already got a structure that's that tall and on the corner, and
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure what that is. So.
the downside with not going forward with some type of recommendation means that at some point they're going to have to come back here with the revised sign. And correct, because, this is part now of a PUD, and the variations are incorporated as a part of that PUD. And if we don't give them some type of upper limit and some direction to work with the staff so that the sign is consistent with what has been approved previous, then they're going to be back here going through the public hearing process again. And is there a way that we could shortstop that?
Well, my first reaction is the P&Z has not recommended 48 feet. Their application still exists at 48 feet. They have the ability to go to the village board and ask for that 48 feet. And village board could grant that, or they could say no, and they could engage in the same struggle you did. And hopefully the village board would arrive at a number, and they would have a better sense of a number that they could live with. Under that scenario, I don't know that they'd have to come back here. If the village board doesn't arrive at an answer and won't approve it, then I do think you have to come back.
Okay. Then we're okay. All right. Anything else open?
Well, just, it appears that the Dave & Buster's entrance feature is about 35 feet, just for another reference point.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Right now, the intention will be to bring this to the village board at their February 19th meeting for a presentation of the report associated with this and the recommendations and the like. So I guess I would encourage you all to look at that sign height prior to that meeting.
And one last thing that Mike brought up, do you want to address the size of these signs that, we had a 48-foot height that we didn't like, but are we recommending a particular size, or are we going to let the reduced height dictate that?
Well, I think the reduced height dictates that.
Are you talking about proportion?
Well, for the SP1 signs, the commission talked about the media panel and the height, and there was one last variation related to those signs, which was for the size. So is just to get clarification on.
What's the size? Square footage? You mean total square footage?
Exactly. They're like 865 rather than, or do we want to just leave that alone, like
I think we leave it.
Bob suggested, and
162
let that be
square feet.
considered in the same conversation with height?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, we look forward to the project that you've suggested for the mall, as well as, at least Scott and I look forward to restaurants that will be open late. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no other public hearings on the agenda this evening. We do have, I guess, discussion of 3 upcoming meetings in February.
Well, it's just 3 items on a potential meeting. UKids Island is a special use permit actually in the mall. I will tell you that you all can go if you like. It's okay. It's a special use permit for a child's recreation and fitness facility. We missed it as a part of the review, so this is more of a confirmation because the use is up and operating.
Parsons?
I believe so, yeah.
Where?
Secondly, First Student Bus Company property on Butterfield Road, rezoning, zoning ordinance amendment, special use permit to allow a trucking firm, and just as kind of an update more than anything else. Bob and I are working on an amendment to the code that will try to work through this. Just as a heads up, the property is zoned to R1, which is 2-acre single-family residential, and has been operating a bus company on it since it was annexed back in the 60s. So we're going to try to take care of that. And then there's a plat of consolidation coming for 3 lots in Pod 18, Riviera Estates. Someone wants to build a single house over these 3 lots and a swimming pool and some other things, and we have to do a plat of consolidation. So they're about 1/3 to 1/2 of an acre. So
Gonna be a big size.
yeah, it's a 11,000 square foot house.
Big lot, big
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
Okay,
So
okay, that's it.
that's it.
Okay, then we have in our packets the approval of the minutes from the December 19th, 2012 meeting. We can do that eventually by acclamation. So we motion to approve those minutes. We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we can do that by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes. Next, we have the favorite motion of the evening, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, anybody
Second.
second it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Good night and thank you very much.
Thank you.